Okay, I've been in this backlog for a dozen years, and now I'm worried about my kids. I gotta look at this like super high.
Welcome back to Visa Vibes. I'm Emily Newman, managing partner of Reddy Newman Brown, and today we're talking about EB-5. If you've been stuck in EB-2 or EB-3 backlogged, especially if you're from India or China, you've probably heard people, including us, say EB-5 is current. You should look at EB-5. So we're stepping back and kind of walking through the basics of EB-5 today, what it is, why it's current right now, what the risks are, and who it actually makes sense for.
Yeah, so EB-5 isn't new, but I feel like especially in the last 4 or 5 years, especially it's become the hot topic again because the green card backlog keeps getting worse. We're seeing every country backlogged. We're seeing slow progression on India, China especially, and so when you talk about individuals who have future plans, maybe family reasons to look into getting a green card now. EB-5 might be an attractive choice because there are certain parts of it that are current for every nationality, at least for now. But there's also a lot of bad information about EB-5. I remember, gosh, I think it was 2019, walking around a conference with Rahul, and they had one of the regional centers had these kids in T-shirts like "Get your green card in 3 months. Ask me how." And he's like, "That's not how it works." So we're gonna try to give a little bit of clarity to the EB-5 just from a basics, and not necessarily the "you're gonna get your green card in 3 months."
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, with the basics, what exactly is EB-5? It is an investor green card category, meaning it's an immigrant visa. And instead of employer sponsorship, the pathway is based on investment plus job creation. So, at a high level, it allows a foreign investor to invest a specific sum of money and apply for permanent residence based on that, as long as that business that they're investing into creates at least 10 US jobs.
Yeah, and there's really, I always talk about when I talk with EB-5 folks, there's all these different, tangents you can take. But at a basic level, there's two ways you could do this investment. You could do it as a direct investment where, you as the individual invest into the capital, create a new commercial enterprise that creates the 10 US jobs. Maybe you're gonna you want to build a business that's going to create this. I had an individual reach out to me about a new idea for a coffee dessert shop. When construction and staff and all that I was like, great, yeah, I could probably do that. The other, and I think this one is more common with our clients, Emily, is indirect, where you invest in a regional center program. Here, the regional center is going to pool resources together to carry out the investment. Most of them already have some sort of approval from USCIS on we're going to take in X amount of dollars, we can create Y amount of jobs. And so they open it up to Z amount of investors. And then you just, invest your money, and it's truly just an investment. It's hands off. And I think that is most common with most of our clients because, let's face it, building a business is going to cost a lot more than $1 million investment.
Yeah, and it's a lot of time, a lot of headache, a lot of effort for something that could fail,
Right.
and that failure can result in you not getting the green card. So, how much do you have to invest in order to take advantage of this regional center or a direct investment?
Yeah, so this is what I say when there's so many different permutations to EB-5. So first you look at it as a direct or indirect. Now, the other thing to look at is in the Regional Center Integrity Act of 2022, Congress created kind of two types of EB-5. You have these unreserved, which are anywhere, type of investments. Those investments will be little over a million. So 1.05 million. The ones that are current for everybody are these set aside areas in rural, high unemployment, or certain infrastructure projects. Those are only an $800,000 investment, and those are current right now.
Okay, so the difference in the investment amount has nothing to do with whether it's a regional center or a direct investment.
No, not at all. So you could do a regional center in a high unemployment area and do the 800,000. You could do a regional center in a non-targeted area and pay the 1.05 million. So really, it's like I said, I think the way I look at it is okay, we're doing set aside, set aside or unset aside. And then from there, I look at regional center and direct. It's kind of how my mind works.
Okay. In the regional centers, there definitely are many that are structured to qualify for that lower investment amount. Um, but it does require a pretty major financial commitment, whether it's 800,000 or a million.
Yeah, it's
It's
not,
a lot of money.
it has to be at risk. It's not like you can sit there and say, we guarantee you're going to get your money back or, whatever. And there's a lot of ways to structure EB-5 and looking at the risks, but that's a heck of a lot of money, Emily. Why is it something people are so interested in right now?
Because it is, because of the way they restructured it in 2022, it is the only category that's current for India, China, for the countries of birth that typically have a backlog in the other categories. So the changes made by the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022 created those set aside categories where they basically took a percentage of the EB-5, all the green cards, and said, we're going to keep these set aside for specifically these rural, high unemployment or infrastructure projects. And because that was new, no one had applied for them yet. So there's no one in line to use them up yet.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell it myself because last little bit there I said Regional Center Integrity Act, not Reform and Integrity Act. Um, but yeah, the demand hasn't caught up yet. Okay, that could happen. I know there's been a lot of push, especially in the backlog communities, going towards EB-5, and we could see, it trend differently soon. But right now, I mean, it's current and available for anybody at least through the February visa bulletin. And I don't expect March or April to be too much different. Maybe the summer,
Mhm.
it might change.
So I could, if I have $800,000 lying around, I could literally file tomorrow and file my 485 and for my family, lock my kid's age in, and get an EAD, get a travel document.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it allows concurrent filing with the I-526. So you'd file the I-526 or the I-526E if you're going through a regional center. And do the 485 concurrently, seek the interim benefits, and that's great. And it does lock the age in, or at least the CISPA calculation will work out once the approval comes most of the time, and that's important because I think a lot of the people I talk to. I would say 80%, Emily, that I talk to about EB-5, you have plenty that are like, I'm tired of dealing with this. I want out. I've got the money, or I can get the money, through a HELOC loan or whatever. Um, a lot of them are more worried about their kids. They had kids that came here on H4 when they were 4, 5, 6 years old, maybe seven, or whatever, and they're now fixing to age out, and they're like, I don't want that to happen. And so they're looking at this. It's kind of an unfortunate situation, right? That our immigration system is such a way that people are like, okay, I've been in this backlog for a dozen years, and now I'm worried about my kids. I got to look at this like super high investment as the only route, but this is the only route Congress has provided right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. The other thing to be aware of with EB-5 is when you're getting your green card, it is a conditional green card. So it's only valid for 2 years. The reason for that is they want to make sure that your investment is actually sustained, that the funds are available to the project and being used by that project for 2 full years. And they also want to make sure that the project actually did create these 10 US jobs, whether it's through the direct investment or if you're using a regional center, did the regional center create these pooled 10 jobs?
Yeah, and they look into it. When you file after 2 years to remove the conditions, you need to provide evidence that you can't just sign a declaration saying I created 10 US jobs. You got to provide the payroll, the taxes, all that to show that it was actually done. Now, that's the one benefit of working with a regional center, Emily. Like they're going to kind of give you a lot of that information. They're going to, here's all of our paperwork, take it with you. Whereas if you do a direct investment, again, more power to you. I would say, a lot of folks I talk to are entrepreneurial minded, and so they want to create a new commercial entity, but they're going to have to create those records themselves.
All right. So you said the regional centers kind of make it a little bit easier for you from a documentation standpoint, especially on the 10 US jobs. And these regional centers have to be approved by USCIS,
Right.
right? Does getting a regional center approved by USCIS mean that it's a good option for the green card? Does it mean that it's a good investment?
So I can't talk about that. And what do I mean? Okay. Um, there are people that are licensed to talk about investments and provide you financial advice. As lawyers, we can look at past success and how much, what has there been success on the green card side, on the immigration side, has this worked out? But in terms of is it a good investment? Are you going to get your money back? Uh, Not only am I unethically and like probably violating several SEC laws by doing that, I just don't even feel competent to do that. My Robinhood app, it's about where I am. Now, the good thing is there are folks that do this. There are licensed dealer brokers that can provide you the guidance. They know the EB-5 program, and can work through it. I mean, I always talk and folks that I work with on EB-5, we have three goals with EB-5. Goal one, get you your green card. You're only doing this, you want to go through this to get your green card. That's why you're looking at it. That's goal one. Goal two is after goal one is complete, can we get your money back? Okay. Because that's great. Now, goal three is if we can get you your green card and maybe make you a little bit of money through the investment. Great. Now, nobody's going to get rich doing EB-5 investments. It's not going to be a huge return on investment, but if we investments can be successful, that's a good thing. But that's where these licensed dealer brokers can come in and talk to you about what does this look like? Is this a good investment and all that?
Yeah, it's really important to do your due diligence on these regional centers and don't assume that it is a good regional center just because it has USCIS approval, because there's a list of like several thousand of them.
Yeah, I mean, I always talk, when clients ask, I could provide you the entirety of the list and send you a portfolio and a printout of every single one of them that USCIS has approved 956Fs for. And I still would not feel comfortable saying this is a good investment, or one of these is a good investment. They could all be terrible from a financial standpoint. Okay, I doubt that's the case, but that's where someone with that financial acumen can help you do that due diligence. And if you're just saying, "Oh, my buddy on Telegram told me this is a good one," and you're not doing your due diligence, like I think you're mistaken.
All right, source of funds. What the heck is that?
Okay. This, I think, is the biggest part of the EB-5 process that you're gonna have to work with your attorney, maybe your CPA, everybody through, because USCIS wants to basically know that every dollar, and this is the analogy I use, is $800,000 got printed, $800,000 came to you and to the regional center. How did you obtain it? Because we have to show it was lawfully acquired capital. Now, okay, well, Stephen, I'm getting W-2 income and then I bought my house. I'm going to use a HELOC loan. Okay, how did you get your house? Was it a gift? Did you take gift from your parents to buy that house? How did they come into the money? If you bought your house, how did you buy it? Was it lawfully obtained capital? And that's, they're going to look into that level of depth of, oh, I have property overseas. How did you obtain that? How did you obtain the capital to obtain that? Is how in depth. And again, I basically, if I drew a list of $800,000 dollar signs, how did you acquire each dollar? Now, it's not like that, okay? But um, that's really the level USCIS goes. Now, a lot of it comes from W-2 income. That's a vast majority. And then that was put into brokerage accounts. Or they took the W-2 income and purchased a house, and we now have a high home equity line of credit on it that we can pull out of, or a loan that we're able to get now. Again, that's all fine. There's a lot of ways to have the source of funds, but it just has to be documented.
All right, so lawful source of funds, you said it could include W-2 income. It
Mhm.
can also include business income, gifts, as you said,
Mhm.
secured loans. The loan cannot be secured by the business that you're
Right.
creating, but as you mentioned, like a HELOC or something like that can work. Sale of property definitely works, but it's not enough to just show I got the funds from the sale of the property. You've got to show how you got the property in the
Right.
first place and where those funds came from. And then investments for
Yeah.
sure.
And we've seen sales of businesses, right? Like an individual they started a business and then they sold it off. And we've done that too. Um, Yeah, the only weird case, the only time it's ever been super weird from that is like USCIS is alleging of regulatory violations mean it's an unlawful source of funds, and they lost on that. But they want to show you're going to have to show where all this came from, and that it came from lawful sources, and that's I think a lot of EB-5s live or die with the source of funds brief.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what makes EB-5 different from the other employment-based categories, most commonly EB-2 and EB-3, but also EB-1 even. The really important thing to realize is EB-5 is a separate category. It does not have the same provision that allows you to keep a priority date from another petition. So you probably know if you have an EB-2 approval, you could downgrade that to EB-3, keep your same priority date. Or if you had an EB-3 approval, but then 10 years later you qualify for EB-1, you can file an EB-1 and keep that old priority date. So you kind of jump ahead in line, which a lot of people are doing right now as well. EB-5 does not do that. So just because you have a 2018 priority date in EB-2, when you're filing your EB-5 in 2026, 2026 is your priority date.
Yeah, and the good thing is, like we said at the beginning, the set aside categories in rural and high unemployment specifically are current. But if you're looking at a non unreserved category, there is a little bit of backlog. It's not terrible, but there is a little bit of a backlog. The one other thing to keep in mind, Emily, and this, again, 99% of the people I talk to have this question is, does this negatively impact my EB-1 or my EB-2 or my EB-3? And the answer is no. I mean, unless you have some sort of fraud that's going to make you inadmissible. You can wait in both lines. You can get your, do your 485 or do your I-526, and maybe next month all of a sudden your priority date is current in EB-1. Okay, you can go with that. It doesn't negate it. You just can't port the priority dates between the two.
All right. So, who exactly should consider EB-5? Definitely people that are in the backlog when it comes to EB-2 or EB-3. If you're facing a decade-long wait, you don't want to be on H-1B. You're continuously renewing it every 3 years, always worried about job loss. What happens if I get sick? All those things. You want to just get it over with
Right,
at some
right.
point, and EB-5 can do that right now because it is current. It's also really helpful for people who have kids that might age out of your other employment-based process because with this date being current, you can actually lock your kid's age in when you file that 485. And it just eliminates that repeated need to keep extending and extending and extending for how long? What are they, who knows what the future of H-1B is going to look like under Trump, under the next Trump,
Hmm.
people always think, oh, well, when Trump's out of office, things will get better because we'll have a Democrat in office. What if we don't? What if it's some another MAGA Republican?
Yeah, and it's a green card. There's a lot more protections for it, but it's also something, I have this conversation with everybody. I get that it's not for everybody. This is a very high level of investment to get involved and has a long-term plan because you're going to have that conditional green card and it's going to take a while to get there, because it's going to go through the process and then you're going to have to remove the conditions. So, I always tell people that if they come to me and they're like, look, I think I'll be, I can port an EB-2 and I probably qualify for an EB-1. And I'm discussing between EB-1 and EB-5. I'm telling them to take the EB-1.
Mhm.
If they qualify for it, because it's a lot easier of a route. It doesn't have the high level investment. It's a permanent green card, not a conditional. And I tell you that even though all the fees are less, right? So EB-1, if you're debating like I can become current in another category, EB-1, EB-2, EB-3, or EB-5, I'm looking at a different category. But if you're looking at I have a 2025 priority date or a 2017, 2019 priority date, like EB-5 is going to become, you're going to get your permanent residency and remove the conditions before 2019 becomes current.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that obviously this does require a pretty high level of investment. There's another somewhat green card category, a
Is there?
gold card category that also is a high level of investment, but not an investment. So we're going to talk a little bit about the gold card, how that interplays with EB-5. Is it something you should consider if you've got $1 million lying around?
Yeah, I had my first consultation yesterday where somebody said, "What about the gold card? Like, I got the means to do it." And so, um, the gold card, I don't even know how to describe its existence because it's not, there's no statute, there's no regulation, there's no policy memo. It's a set of form instructions
Sounds real solid.
and an announcement. And when all this was put together, and they talked about this gold card as green card privileges plus. Okay. Um, but first off, unlike EB-5, which is an investment, this is just a gift. Okay. You have to just make a gift to the Treasury Department. Whereas EB-5, you might be able to get your funds back. It's an investment, right? So it has to be at risk. You could lose, you could win. Okay. But it's not just a gift. The other odd thing about the gold card that was not with what they talked about, okay, and I don't think this is green card privileges plus, if you ask me, okay, is that when you fill out the I-140G, which is the form for the gold card, um, you can get an EB-1A or an EB-2 NIW, and I still don't know how that works. Okay, are they taking this as a award, so you have to prove up other criteria? Is it an NIW? You're still going to be backlogged? Like, again,
Yeah, who would pick EB2?
yeah, I don't understand that. I think, truthfully, they could put together regulations that say we interpret how, if you can give $1 million that you have extraordinary ability in business. And that's going to be, we're going to consider that as part of our category. But there's nothing. There's not even a memo, Emily.
Yeah, and the other thing that they failed to mention when they decided this gold card plus benefit is that if you have a family, it's not $1 million. It's $1 million per person.
Yeah, it's for those of us with a lot of kids, a big investment, Emily. And Emily, we get asked all the time, like, was EB-5 going away
Yeah.
because of this?
Yeah, I think that is definitely a question because they seem similar on their face, at least in the amount, and that you're getting a green card. But thankfully, a president can't just make the EB-5 program go away because it is created by Congress, set by Congress. So it only changes if Congress amends the statute. As of today, it's still written in the Immigration Nationality Act, which Gold Card is not.
Hmm.
And it has detailed eligibility requirements for the adjudication process. So I don't think if the Trump administration were to intend to eliminate EB-5 and put in place the gold card instead, it would certainly be ripe for a lawsuit because they can't just not implement the INA that Congress said this is what you have to do.
Yeah, and obviously Congress, can change the law. Good luck. They tend not to touch major immigration, but even if they were to add in, let's call it EB-6 and call it, the gold card, they would still have to affirmatively remove the EB-5 statute from the INA. And so, I mean, this is a lot of political questions, but no, the gold card announcement, and that's all it is, and a form, does not negate the EB-5.
Yeah, and you have to remember the purpose of these categories. EB-5 is truly an investor visa. It's meant to allow companies, allow governments to build these big projects that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to do. And it's got a job creation requirement to it. Whereas the gold card, it's a gift. You don't get it back, and it has zero benefit to the economy. It does not create US jobs, no requirement to show any of that. So I think replacing that EB-5 framework with a gold card framework would be pretty big legislative overhaul that's
Yeah.
not likely to.
I mean, I could see them adding a category, right? Like we'll create some sort of gold card EB-6, that's what I'm going to call it, available. Because, okay, if you can give a donation, maybe that's something we will. I don't know. Emily, the other topic here I wanted to talk about is the regional center program sunsetting. Did that before. Can it happen again?
Yes. So when they passed the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act in 2022, they specifically included a sunset provision. So that means the statute ends, the category ends on September 30th, 2027, unless Congress acts to reauthorize it. That begs the question, like, what if I'm in the middle of my process and Congress doesn't reauthorize it? Do I lose my money? Do I lose my green card? What happens now?
Yeah, so thankfully Congress realized our immigration system is slow, and you could apply today and still be waiting adjudication in 2027. And so there's a grandfathering provision. Any EB-5 petition filed on or before September 30th, 2026 is protected by law. So yes, there's a 1 year difference, right? So September 30th, 2026, you have to file everything, even though the program ends in a year. Um, they don't just disappear. They can still be adjudicated. And that's why it's a sunset, not a closure, I think, not a termination.
Yeah. And so that means time is of the essence here. We are in January 2026 to qualify for this grandfathering in case they don't
Right.
reauthorize. You have to file by September 30th, 2026. That's 8 months away. Plus, we don't know how long it's going to be current because they're catching up on the adjudications. It's going to start using up those green cards faster. So if you're thinking of this, September 30th, 2026 is really your deadline.
Yeah, here I am thinking it's another year away, and we're in 2026. But it's sunset before, and there was a long gap before they reauthorized it and they retooled the program. And there's been backlog, the unreserved category, as everybody was part of that, and they kind of got pushed back. So, I do think time is of the essence here, Emily, if this is something people are looking to take a part of.
All right. Well, we hope we gave you a pretty decent overview of EB-5, why you might want to consider it and who it's for, and kind of the ins and outs and why it is important to act now rather than, sitting on the sidelines and continuing to wait.
Yeah, I think that's been a theme anyway. You can't just wait for immigration things to
Mhm.
happen. You've got to take action. But, EB-5, it isn't a shortcut. This is a burdensome endeavor. I mean, this is you're going to have to provide a lot of documents to your attorney to USCIS to justify your source of funds. It's not I have the money kind of thing. I'm good for it. Trust me. To show it. So it is a good path, but it is very cumbersome too.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us for Visa Vibes. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast so you can get our next one.
Thank you.